Technology and magic. Now, these two things seem to be complete opposites. Their combinations seem to be a paradox, but when it comes down to it, the spiritual practices that make up magic or magical tradition can be met in the modern day with technology. Technology is leading to where we will be, and magic is where we have been. Magical traditions are basically instrumental in every single spiritual tradition or religion when it gets right down to the basics of what rituals we perform, what symbology we recognize, and how we relate to the gods, and who we become as we progress along any given spiritual path. When I'm talking about magic, I do speak about rituals. I do speak about one's relationship to the universe and one's relationship to the gods. And how these things can benefit us as an individual, and how we can craft our own future, our own essence into something that we envision through these practical, magical practices that anyone and everyone can use, no matter what system you're operating within. Now, there are many fields left untouched when it comes to the combination of magic and technology. Technomancy is something that is not known by most people, and technomancy is technological magic practice, basically. Just like any kind of other mancy, pyromancy, necromancy, things like that. But technomancy is particularly focused on technology and how to operate with magic in accompanying technology. Now, I have come up with a particular device, not necessarily to give as an example, but a device that came to me as a result of working with the Nordic gods, with the gods of the northern shamanistic tradition of my ancient northern European ancestors. And similar things can be done throughout any magical tradition or any kind of religious tradition that is embraced on the more practical, spiritual side, and not just the dogmatic side, because the dogmatic side doesn't give you anything to work with. This is the device that I'm talking about right here. This device is basically an attempt to create a doormat for the gods. Now, this device in particular, the one that I've come up with, well, tonight, but I have thought about it in the past and tried to come up with something similar. Basically, there are 9 doorways in this circle, suspended upon some kind of platform. And all these doorways represent the 9 worlds. Every single doorway represents a certain dimension that I consider the 9 worlds. Every single of these 9 worlds is a dimension. And they basically have a progression from basest, most primordial, to highest, most illuminating, most ultimate, I guess you could say. Now, each one of these doorways, especially the one at the very top, starts further away from us. And then these doorways kind of get closer and closer to us in a circle. Now, the spiral that I show in this picture is meant to show energy. It's not meant to be the actual construction of the device or the design of the device. It's meant to show the energy transference. And now, there are proper runes that need to be suspended in between all of these doorways. And all these doorways should be technically made out of gold or some fine metal. Some metal that is very conductive, and gold is very conductive. And the runes suspended in between can be made of silver or gold, but it has to be very conductive. And the runes that I've come up with for this particular design, they might need to be tweaked. Especially since the ones that I've shown are suspended in between these doorways. And each one of these doorways has to be attuned to its particular world, its particular dimension, along Yggdrasil, the world tree. And how do we attune each one of these doorways? Each one of these doorways has to be attuned through meditation, through Galder, which is spellcraft or incantation, invoking that dimension and each one of these doorways has to be spent a lot of time on and attuning to that dimension. But it has to be a welcoming sight, and the doorway should open towards us. And but where the gods come in, it should open through. They should be allowed to work through these doorways so that they open up directed towards us. Now, each one of these doorways has to have Nordic designs, flowing Celtic knots, you could say, ones that are very conductive magically and technologically, because there has to be an electromagnetic source directly behind the highermost door, which represents the door to Asgard, towards the Aesir. So the electromagnetic current has to be able to be just behind the topmost door, and then basically travel throughout all the doorways and open them towards us. And that takes some technological design, because the design has to happen before basically the welcome mat for the gods can be placed out to where they are tempted to walk through these doors. Not necessarily tempted, but encouraged, asked to walk through these doors. And the size of these doors aren't necessarily relevant, because the size of the doors are in relation to however big you want to make the device. But the gods can be any size they want, and their influence doesn't have to be their literal body trying to squeeze through these doors. So these doors open in succession, Asgard being the furthest away, and then slowly it gets closer and closer to us. And I guess you could say Jotunheim or Hell would be maybe the bottommost doorway. I haven't worked out all the details yet, but there are 9 worlds, and basically the bottommost of the 9 worlds would be closest to us in this spiral fashion. And now this is a very grand design, and I just have a basic sketch put up right here. But this is a great example of a magical device that I want to try and build. I need other people to help build it. I don't have the resources myself to finance such a thing. It would take thousands of dollars, and of course many hours of work that would theoretically be done by people who actually want to do it and wouldn't necessarily be paid. But and that is the core, because it have to be done by people who actually believe in the device, believe in its function, and actually want it to be produced. And we, of course, metalworking, electrician, somebody who knows how to work with these different materials. I just have the design basis, but I don't have the skill to produce it myself. And it can be as big as we want. But basically everything that I want to say about the device right now is written in the sketch that I've drawn. And if anybody's interested out there, feel free to shoot me a like. Feel free to shoot a comment. Whatever you want to talk about, and whatever questions you have. But I'm most definitely on Facebook, so feel free to look me up at Hunter Salazar. I live in Texas. I'll put a link in the description below. And there are many different magical devices that can be produced in and through many different traditions. So we don't have to, just produce this one. I'm willing to work in a number of traditions. I'm most familiar with Hindu traditions and Northern European traditions, Northern European ancestral gods being my second most attunement as far as my spirit and my soul. And I've worked with the lowest of them. But things like this can be produced in any tradition, and thus should be attempted. In recorded history, we don't have enough information to say that this has ever been attempted. And most certainly if it was attempted, something like this, it was produced not with any degree of technology, but purely with magic. So we have a very great opportunity in the last 200 years, last 100 years, to produce something that is both magical and technological. The electromagnetic source that I am theorizing should work would be behind the furthest most door, but that's just been produced in the last 100 years. So the signal itself, the the conductivity itself would travel along this spiral towards us, starting further away from us through these doors, and the doors should open. And this would be a very great conductivity, not just for, of course, the device and electromagnetivity, but also for welcoming the gods to communicate to us. And now these crystals that I write that should be on either side of this spiral, furthest most away, even past the furthest most door, and closest to us, even past the bottommost door, and suspended through rods or some kind of other suspension, would be a attunement device, something that all this energy can be directed into, and then through the doors, and then into the other crystal, and then into the practitioner. This is a device that purely came to me through inspiration, and I highly recommend that you try and develop your own devices. Whatever spiritual path you're a part of, try and figure out how you can combine technology and magic and whatever religious symbols that you have. Put that as the basis for the design of such a device, because the more the symbols are a part of the device, the more that the magic actually functions. Not just because these symbols mean something to you, but because these symbols actually have a primordial connection to the sources which we are trying to divulge the nature of or connect to. Now, the runes are very important to me, and this is why I include the runes in the spiral. But I also think that the runes should be placed in certain formats along each door, which would take a lot more effort, and there's certain designs and artwork that needs to be placed on each door and in the device in general, and each connector needs to flow in a Nordic knot kind of way. But this is also to help you get ideas as to how you can create your own devices, and maybe even you create them on paper and use that in a magical format and purely without technology. But I would love to create this device. If anybody's interested in this, feel free to contact me, and please contact me. But hey, thank you very much for watching. Like I said before, if you like this video, make you think at all about what you want to do, hit that thumbs up down there. Feel free to shoot a comment, ask questions, or maybe if you disagree with me or agree with me. And I am most certainly on Facebook, once again, at Hunter Salazar, and I live in North Texas. And I'll include a link in the description below. And feel free to use my ideas to craft your own magical devices if you can, because I would love to see some of these things work. They have not been done in recorded history, and I think that they should be done so that we can all get closer to the root of material existence, that which is more subtle but more powerful. Thank you very much. Y'all have a great day.